right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. I have with me Michael Crean. Michael, hello. Good morning. How are
Hey,
you?
morning, Ted. How are you, sir?
I'm doing incredibly well today. Um, Looks like we're getting a lot of people coming in. We'll probably just sit here and chit chat for a minute or two while people continue to file into the room. But uh, Michael, we were talking last week. What did you think of the ASCII event?
It was good. It was great. I think, it's fun to go to the big events because there's so much energy and there's so many events and happenings going on at the big events. But where I really love the most, I like the smaller events. I like the intimacy. I like talking to more people. I like having meaningful conversations. It's not speed dating. When you go to a Kaseya or ConnectWise or one of these, it's a gigantic event and there's thousands of people there and so many people are vying for your attention. But you go to these smaller, more intimate events, like you can have a real conversation with somebody, and it's not even always about business. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
just about, hey, let's talk about the struggles and the journey of raising teenage daughters. Which sometimes you don't really get to do that when you're at some of these larger events.
That's for sure. And I mean, Michael and I go to a lot of events and we're at a lot of events at the same time. I have 35, 36 events on my schedule this year. Michael, I don't know how many you have, probably fewer than that, but not many fewer than that. Um, he's got other responsibilities. I'm mostly an event person at this point,
Yeah, I
but
don't I don't know anymore. And I don't want to count either because Ted, if I count and I realize I'm up into the 30s, like I'm just not gonna feel good about it. So I'm gonna run around to my blind list at the moment.
but what I love about it is it's getting to see all the vendors and what they're working on and how they're trying to help MSPs be successful. At the same time, talking to all the MSPs and like it's a joy when I go to Houston and talk to people I haven't seen in a year and they're like, we talked about this last year and maybe I remember, maybe I don't, but maybe those conversations spurred activity within the business that has paid off. I love that stuff. It just makes me super excited. All right, so let's get to the meat and content of the webinar. Michael and I have been planning this for a while. At least the last 30 days, we've been talking about the conversation we want to have today. Michael, why don't we start with just introducing ourselves? I'll lead off and then you can jump in, and I'll make this painless as possible. But I started in this industry in 1992 as a white box builder. I was actually going to take a job with AT&T, and for reasons that I won't go into here, that job didn't pan out. And I started working for a white box builder, and that led me down the road of starting my own IT services company back in 1992. Well, I started in 1991, but in 92, I started that business at the end of 92 and ran it for 15 years. Then merged with my largest competitor and eventually sold the business to him. Um, Long story short, if there was a mistake that I didn't make, I don't know what it is because I made every mistake along the way. And I think that's really the conversation today is Michael and I are going to talk about all the things that we did wrong in order to get to the place we are now. And I don't think either one of us were charting this path. I don't think either one of us planned to be on the vendor side. I know I didn't. That wasn't in my planning until after I had sold the business and I was trying to figure out what to do next. But Michael, why don't you introduce yourself from an MSP perspective?
Sure. Well, appreciate everybody's time. Ted, thanks for putting this together. My MSP journey is not near as long as yours. A part of a good majority of my adulthood was spent in the US Army, and then I made a hard right turn when I got out of the military and decided to get into IT. And of course, what else was I going to do but be a government contractor? Found out that I hated that with a passion and found myself on unemployment and started my job as I'll say it was a VAR. Wasn't even an MSP at this point in time, and this is around 2000, 2001. And where I really found my love and my passion was around cybersecurity and changing my company before it changed me, or before I found that there was no opportunity for change, into being this master managed security services provider and being an MSSP for MSPs, and what we've been doing for the last 8 or 9 years, under the name of Solutions Granted, where I was the CEO and founder. And now everybody can see that I am no longer the CEO and founder. I'll say I'm the recovering CEO, but still the founder of Solutions Granted. And I I get the pleasure of being and acquired by SonicWall, who had a long relationship for a very, very long time. And, now sitting in this global role of being the senior vice president of managed security services and transforming them from being the traditionally thought of firewall company to now being a services company.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you talked about all the things that you failed at doing. And so the things that you weren't sure that you failed at, well, I probably did them and +2 for you. So everything that you missed, I probably got for you. So we got it covered.
All right, well, let's start swinging at that. First of all, before we go down that road, I want to point out I started Get Channel 10 years ago, and as Michael knows, and some of you may know, when I'm not diving, I work with different vendors on building a channel program that just makes sense and makes it easy for MSPs to engage. And the interesting thing about that was, I think being an MSP is not necessarily easier today, but there's a lot more scripted for MSPs. There are a lot more tools, a lot more capabilities, peer groups, opportunities to grow, opportunities to converse with others and learn, and so on and so forth. But 10 years ago, I don't think it was quite as fully fleshed out as it is now. And my only goal was really to, yeah, I figured I never wanted to ever charge an MSP for any kind of consulting services. That never made any sense to me. It's hard enough to make money as an MSP. Why add a tax to anything? But I figured if I could go work with vendors and build programs that just made sense and were simple for MSPs, then I would be helping the MSP channel and I would feel good about it. It's definitely not curing cancer, but the goal was always to get from a place that I was really familiar with. Am I going to be able to pay myself this month? To what kind of car am I going to buy, or do I buy a boat, or do I, whatever, like having disposable income, creating a business that gives you both the freedom of time and the freedom of income in order to make some of the, kinder to yourself decisions. So that's what motivates me to this day. And I've actually posted on Facebook a number of times when I'm walking around an event. I was at a Robin Robbins event not that long ago, and walking behind somebody and he was buying a plane online while he was listening to a presentation. I was like, man, this channel has come a long way. MSPs are far more serious business people than they used to be. So anyway, that's what drives me. What about you?
So I think, what drives me and probably what has driven me in my entire adulthood, from my military service through government contractor into being a business owner, is helping those who can't help themselves. Really trying to defend somebody against something and someone that, one, you have a hard time seeing that it's even out there. You don't even know where it's really coming from. And, that protector defender idea, mentality has always resonated with me. And I think it's the thing that what I love more than anything is when somebody's having a really bad day and there's anything that I or my team can do that can take away a little bit of that pain and make it seem like it isn't quite as bad as the moment they picked up the phone. That drives me. Like I love that idea of taking care of people in the moment where they can't take care of themselves and they just don't know what to do.
Well, that sounds like somebody who should build a security company. Oh,
Yeah,
that happens.
right. No, no kidding. I mean, and so I had this opportunity once where I got to testify on Capitol Hill, and it was around the threat landscape and cybersecurity and how it was affecting small businesses. It was all around small businesses. And the chairman at that point in time, he, knew something about my military background. And he knew that what we were dealing with on the cyber front. And his comment was, we basically traded one battlefield for the next. Which, it's hard to equate what we do today to people that are actually potentially sacrificing their lives and, in that physical moment in time of need. And so I don't know how comfortable I feel with it. Yeah, I can see that there's a lot of stuff happening and a lot of people refer to this digital frontier as the new battlefield that we're dealing with. Um, I still place a higher value on life than I do on, somebody getting ransomware. Serious, important, can be a really big deal, but I think life might be just a little bit more valuable for me.
I totally get that, but at the same time, the fight is still the fight. The stakes may be different, and that changes a lot, but the fight is the fight. And one of the things about a fight like the security fight the digital war that we're getting into right now is that it continues on. I mean, sometimes on the battlefield, something's going to end at some point. This just keeps going and going and going, and you have to be able to stick with it and keep fighting and deal with the next threat and the next threat and the next threat. There are probably a lot of parallels there, but it's still a fight, and it's a fight that's worth fighting to protect people, give people the opportunity to make a living, to just go be on the internet, to go exist and take advantage of the tools that are out there. You're still protecting people. So
Yeah,
it matters. It
it
matters.
does. No, it definitely matters. There was
So
a
let's go ahead.
Ted, somebody's setting this up here. Um, there's an anonymous attendee, and I always love the ones that come in as anonymous. Like there was a question that came in and says, "What was your main reason for evolving your business out of an MSP?" You and I talked about this. We
Jump
talked
on it.
about, yeah. So this is this is my story of me being a miserable human being. I'm not gonna lie. Um, I'm a big believer in free will. I choose to do what I choose to do, and these are my actions that I have to be responsible for. And it went from this moment in time where I was coming out of government contracting, didn't have a job, needed something to do, and just kind of fell into being a business owner. I call it my story of dumb luck. And I evolved from this VAR to being an MSP. But I will tell you, I was not a nice MSP. Like I was not nice to my clients. Like my bedside manner sucked. I'm gonna be honest. Like I was not a nice person. And I knew this about myself, but I wasn't really tracking me as well as I should have. And my and the reason people kept me around is because I was able to execute at a really high level, really fast, and just solve problems and get to the root of what it was and get them back to whatever it was they needed or however they were planning. And so people tolerated my shenanigans and they tolerated my bad bedside manner. And I started to realize, like, wait, this is on me. These were my decisions. Nobody made me be an MSP. Nobody made me be a business owner. Nobody made me do these things. And yet here I am not being nice to people because I'm not happy. And I'm taking it out on them. And I took a hard look and was like, well, what was I passionate about? What did I want to be when I grew up? And I say this to people all the time. Like, I don't like it doesn't matter if you're 20 or if you're 60. It's still what do you want to be when you grow up? And I wanted to go back to doing something that I felt passionate with purpose and helping people defend themselves. And that was the biggest reason I transitioned out of being an MSP to finding my way through a security focused MSP to being an MSSP. And it felt good. I also didn't have to get the call at 10 a.m. on a Friday night that you couldn't print. And the first words that were coming out of my mouth was, okay, obviously that little blinky light telling you that you're out of toner is somehow my emergency on this Friday night. And you're too stupid to understand what you're even looking at. So let's just box that little thing up that you've got over there that's connected. Let's take you back to pen and paper and let's just go ahead and move on. That is not the thing you want to say to anybody ever when they're paying you for help. So that would be why I transitioned from an MSP to an MSSP.
Yeah, so I didn't necessarily transition my business. I transitioned my life from being an MSP to being a vendor, but a lot of the same kind of stories. For me, I'll never forget the director of technology for a school system calling me at 11 o'clock at night. And at the time, I had two young kids. One was 3, one was 1. So sleep was at a premium. And he's calling and yelling at me about why it was the middle of summer. I mean, I could almost probably tell you the date. Middle of summer, he's yelling at me because all the schools ordered PCs in the summer so that they could get them rolled out and ready for the next year. And he's yelling because his monitors aren't in and another school system's monitors were in. And I'm just sitting there taking it and wanting to lose my mind. And I think maybe I had a little bit more control over the lose your mind thing. But I said, Jim, here's the deal. I begged you. I absolutely begged you to spend the extra $15 to get speakers on your monitors. This dates this. This was a long time ago. In fact, it was, 22 years ago. But I asked you to get speakers on your monitors because availability was better. And you said, no, we don't have the budget, can't spend $15 more. And, the other school system who bought, 3 times as many as you did took my advice, got the speakers on the monitors, and they have their stuff delivered now. Do you remember that conversation? He said, I'm so sorry. I really am sorry. I should have thought about this before we got on the phone. And it was really at that point, for the same reasons that you're thinking about it, I was so tired of being misappreciated when I planned ahead, gave them the news that they needed, allowed them to make the decision, and then got blamed for it. That's one of those things that I don't know. We just don't see that on the vendor side nearly as much as we see it on the MSP side. But also, to my point before, I'm working every day to make an MSP's life better. That's the motivation for me. And when that's the motivation, it's a different thing. When I was an MSP, I was selling stuff, whether it was services or hardware or whatever it was. I was selling things, and selling
Mhm.
things maybe solved the problem, maybe didn't solve the problem, but solved the problem of me having cash flow. Today, it's not necessarily about, I mean, there's still a bottom line to be had, but uh, for me, it's just much more rewarding because I know every day when I wake up, the person that I'm talking to is my mission, and that makes a huge difference for me. We got another question in, and I love this, guys. Anybody who wants to jump in here with questions, in your opinion, what's the biggest mistake MSPs are making today? I'll jump on that one because I kind of talk about it a lot anyway. Um, Operational maturity level is something probably all of you guys are thinking about. You're talking to your team and to your customers and to consultants and anybody else about what you can do to make your kit or your stack better, what you can do to make your deliverable better, what you can do in order to take labor out of your value proposition and be great at delivering managed services. And there is nothing wrong with that at all, except most of you, many, not most, I don't know, I don't have a percentage here, but many MSPs are not taking that story out on the road and talking to prospects about it. They aren't driving the conversation out into a broader part of the world. You are making yourself the best kept secret of your regional area or whatever by not telling the story. If you built operational maturity level, then you need engagement maturity level. You need to be showing your customers and your prospects from the day you walk in the door what their experience with you is going to be like. If you're not doing that, you're not growing. You're not exposing people to services that would maybe change their lives. You're keeping your best talents a secret from your customers, and that's just hurting everyone. Nobody wins in that situation. Your customers, the prospects, the people who need your services the most, none of them win because you're not selling to them. You don't ever really have to sell as an MSP, you have to solve problems. But if you don't get out there and give the opportunity to solve problems to your customers and show them how you can solve their problems, then nobody wins. And I really think that's the weakness. The tools are there to do it today. There are so many great tools, Momentum among them, in order to go sell. But many MSPs don't see that as their role in life and don't do it. And if you don't hire somebody to do it or find a way to do it, uh, you're you're hurting yourself. Michael?
Yeah, so agree with everything that you said. You know, there's this fear that we all have in life, and it's the fear of the unknown. And it can motivate you to become bigger, better, badder, stronger, or it can demotivate you to hide in a corner and not stand for your convictions. I think as MSPs, and this is everybody, this isn't just about MSPs, but I think MSPs struggle with this. And in that operational maturity level, when you're just starting out, like do whatever it takes to keep the lights on. You know, find the things that you can't compromise on that you know you have to do. Like you have to take my RMM tool, you have to take my backup, whatever those things may be. But is you're in that very beginning phase, you know, don't let the light at the end of the tunnel be the train that runs you over because you're beginning to become too stubborn. But as you continue to mature, as you start to get your reoccurring revenue, as you start to set your standards, when you're coming into the clients and you know that you're not looking for every penny because every penny matters, make sure that you set standards that you believe in, be passionate about what you're doing and have that conviction. And if your conviction is that you know that these are all the things that you do to maintain your cybersecurity hygiene, and these are the the basics of all basics. Then when your client tells you, or your prospective client tells you no, try to word it a different way, try to deliver the message in a different way, tell them a story, use it as a relatable story to home security or whatever it may be that makes sense, that you think that they can hear you differently. And if you still get the answer of no, then your answer to them is also no, because what they're going to do is wear you out. And when they wear you out, they're going to wear you down. And when they wear you down, you're not going to be as profitable. And that's not what you want. And that's a really important thing to remember, that you are the subject matter expert. That's critical. Like, people didn't come to you because they were hoping for the yes. They came to you, yes, they want the yes, but they want the yes from somebody that has conviction in what they're delivering and how they're delivering it. And if you think giving them an indemnification document of said, well, these are my things that I say I can't compromise on, but I'm going to compromise just for you this one time. Okay, here we go. You're going to sell me a used car. Great. Just this one time. No, don't give in, and don't let that happen, because it will hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, along those lines, and these 2 points tie together so nicely. If you have 20 prospects coming through the door every month because you've got a campaign out there that drive prospects through the door, then you get to choose which customers you take and which customers you don't take. If you're shrinking because you only have 2 prospects coming in the door a month and you don't get to choose, you have to sign up anybody who is willing to work with you, then you don't have the opportunity to do what Michael's saying. So drive the prospect list, drive the pipeline, bring customers in, and then choose to work with the ones who identify with your value proposition, who see the value of what you're doing. Not everybody is going to see or deserves your services. I mean, if it's all about money all the time and your services are all about value all the time, that's not alignment. You can't win that way. All you're going to do is end up with an unhappy customer, and they are, to Michael's point, going to drain you of your ability to happily go about in a rewarding fashion delivering services to your customers.
So
So,
Ted, here's a good one for you. I got a question for you. Do
but
you have a story about a client who you knew you should have fired or gotten rid of, but for whatever reason, and I'd like to know what the reason was, you hung on to them?
oh man, you're asking me to go way back in time. Um, yeah, uh, sure. We worked with a lot of school districts, maybe 80 or 90 school districts in Ohio, and they were anywhere. You want me to talk about the MSP days, not the modern. I'm going to talk about the MSP days. It's much safer.
No, I mean,
Um,
whatever it is, I mean, I think it's just like trying to give people some advice. Like, we've all been there, we've all made mistakes, but acknowledging those mistakes and hearing somebody else like you, who's made it and has been successful, you know. So people want to hear about the trials and tribulations. They don't want to hear about you buying your plane, Ted.
No, well, I don't have a plane. But either way, yeah, there was a school district, a large school district that was 6 hours away from us. They were about as far in Ohio as you can get away. And we were working with them, and they were buying a lot of stuff. So they were a very profitable client. And I mean, they didn't want to be profitable. They wanted to nickel and dime us to death, but somehow we always managed to find margin after we took the order, such that, we felt good about the relationship. But I lost 7 employees in a row by putting them on site at this location. And 7 people over a period of 2 years quit because they absolutely hated being browbeaten by that customer all the time. And it wasn't, those people were happy, successful, talented, capable folks who looked up and said, oh, I have to move 6 hours away in order to take this job, but you're going to pay for room and board and food, and like, it's a big money opportunity for me. So I'm going to go take on that role. I know confidently that I can do better than the person who was in that role before. And I love that about our team. They were hungry. They wanted to be successful. And so I unintentionally kept throwing them into the grinder of this school system. And I mean, we lost 7 good people people who were driving revenue, who were creating revenue at other customer sites, who were beloved by other customer sites because we didn't pay attention to getting rid of more than $1 million a year customer. It's hard to get rid of a more than $1 million a year customer, but what I didn't know in my 30s, I know in my 50s, that the people in your company are the lifeblood of your company. And if they are in a position where they can wake up every morning and feel good about coming to work and excited about their value proposition to the company and to the customer, then you're just going to keep on winning. If you have the other situation, then you just keep on fighting fires all the time. And whether you make more or fewer dollars at the end of the day, it's not enough to make up for all the headaches associated with losing people who you quite frankly love. So
Great
that's
story.
my
That's a tough one, man. It's
it.
tough when you're trying to balance that.
So Christian, we got a couple more questions here. I'm loving this. We're in the process of acquiring a break fix and we'll be converting to an MSP. Obviously, we need a multifaceted approach towards re-optimizing strategy, tools, and processes from the top down. Any out of the box advice you can lend that can't be quantified on paper? I have an answer, but I can let Michael talk for a little while.
Oh, um, and like whatever you've done in your business that's gotten you to this point where you can acquire another business, obviously you've been successful for
Amen.
whatever or however, and that's really powerful, and that's something for you to remember. So as you make this acquisition, you know, what you don't want to do is you don't want to come in and just assimilate them and make them change because there's probably more to the business than you just buying some profitable entity out there. You're either buying it also for the people, or you're buying it for the strategic clients, or you're seeing this opportunity to break into this other market, whatever that may be. Um, I think that the intangible one for here is slow and steady wins the race. You know, come in, look at what you're buying, understand what you're buying and how you can bring it in, but also how you can learn. Like, here's what I love about my acquisition. SonicWell acquired me, a 33-year-old, 1,700 employee operating. I don't know how many countries. It's ridiculous the number of countries that we operate in. And here was Solutions Granted, this tiny little master managed security services provider that had over 1,000 MSPs. SonicWell's got 17,000 MSPs. And what they have done is they've taken an opportunity to actually leave me as an independent organizational business unit inside of SonicWell. They've allowed me to do the things that I'm incredibly successful at doing and then helping me along the way. So take maybe that same approach as how you see them for the value of who they are. How do you learn from them? And then how do you bring it all together to become more successful and even bigger than what you thought it might be during the acquisition?
Yeah, so that's great advice. To add to that, and usually for me, it's about telling the story. I was on a plane a dozen years ago with, and I'm sort of outgoing. I strike up conversations with people, and just happened to be sitting across the aisle from a guy who won the national public speakers competition the year before, and he's an amazing public speaker. I've watched him. Um, I followed him on Facebook, watched a lot of his presentations and how he teaches people how to present today. And I said, well, I mean, I do get on stage a lot. Tell me what, if you were to sum it all up in one piece of advice, what would it be? And he said, it's easy. Tell the story and make a point. And this is something that you can't really quantify, but when you're acquiring another organization that doesn't have the same deliverable you do, you need to go tell a story about why your deliverable has been amazing for your customers and have them, when and if possible, make the point. So spend some money on video production, go to your happy existing MSP customers and have them tell the story about how they moved from a break fix life, if you can find it, to a managed services life and what the benefit was and why the benefit with you was better than the first or second or third person that they worked with, et cetera, and so on. Tell a story and make a point. There are pain points out there around security. There are pain points out there about around reaction times and so on and so forth. There are lots of things that many MSP customers have as triggers. Find out what those triggers are, and how you fix and identify how you fix them, and then tell the story to your new customer base and give them a really sweetheart deal in order to switch over from where they are today to where you want to take them tomorrow. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sweetheart deal, but they need to look at what they're spending today and what they're spending with you tomorrow and see a clear value difference. If you can save them money, then you can have a no-brainer conversation. If even if it's more expensive, but you can show them how you're going to increase time, so on and so forth. Those things are all quantifiable. Those are things MSPs pay attention to all the time. But telling the story from your existing customer perspective and making the point will help win them over. You're not going to win them all over in the first week, month, or even year, but at some point you're going to start pruning the bush, as you will, and turning everything to managed services. And so you'll have your early adopters and then your next adopters, and then you'll have those that you'll have to probably walk away from at some point, and make sure they understand that. So we have another question. When it comes to bad clients, how do you best protect your employees? All right, I'm going to give you a quick answer to this one because this is one I actually did. We had an email address, service@oxfordsystems.com or oxfordsys.com. Maybe it was probably osi.net, but whatever, doesn't matter. Neither one of those work anymore. Or if they do, they're not my old company. Either way, service at and angry at. And if I told everybody when I was pitching them, if something's going on that rises to the level of you need to talk to me, then you send the email to angry at. But please understand, if you send more than 3 emails to angry at, we're going to have a conversation about whether we're a good fit for you or not. I will take the angry at emails every single time, and I will make sure that the problem gets addressed. And I will do that 3 times. But if we go to time number 4 in an unreasonably short period of time, then we're not a fit. And it's obvious that we're not a fit. And one of us is going to have to change something. And we're a fit for a lot of people. So it's not likely to be us. And it's not likely to be your problem. It's likely to be an expectation disconnect. And I've got a successful business. We're $6 million a year, and we're making a lot of people happy, and I hear it all the time. So we want to make you happy, but if we can't, we also want to exit stage left in a professional way, and I want to give you a path to exit that makes sense for all of us. So by the time you send that second email to angry, know that we're on a path to not being a fit, and we should probably focus on being on a path to being a fit. It kept all the angry conversations out of my employees' inbox. Everything else was service. They had a path to go with angry. Now, it didn't mean that worked every time, but it worked most of the time, and it kept me out of that shit, out of that stuff. Sorry, my bad.
That's a heck of a story, man. Like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say they created an email that was angry at. And there's some psychological advantage to that. Like, you are empowering somebody to express their anger, and it's okay because anger is never really looked at as okay. There's this stigma around it is like, oh, you should be able to control yourself better. You should be able to temper yourself. You should be able to, whatever. Sometimes it's okay to be able to get it out there. And I think that was a really brilliant idea. Like, man, as long as I've known you, I've never heard that story. But I like that one.
It's not something that comes
Here's
up a
what
lot.
here's what I would say is 100% agree with you on that. I would also try to remind everybody that's listening today is like, look, we all have bad days. And it is our job as service providers to be kind, caring, and compassionate. Does not mean that we should be abused. But we have to remember, like, sometimes when Ted was raising little kids and he wasn't getting a whole lot of sleep, like, sleep deprivation is a real thing and it can make you less than tolerable of other people. You find out that you are being told that it's going to cost $5,000 to repair your car and you weren't expecting it. The IRS comes in and says you owe them $10,000, or you find out that a family member is given a terminal diagnosis. We get all of these outside influences that are happening in our lives. And it's not very often that we think about, hey, wait, this is out of character for this person. Maybe I need to address them differently and just say, hey, are you okay? Is there something going on? Like, we've been doing the business for a really long time together. Is there something that we've done? Or is there something else happening? And is there some ear that I can give you just to be heard? it's not the side of making money. It's not the side of, you know, the business of doing business, but it is the side of being in a community and being in a real relation with somebody. And so I think sometimes we have to always remember, hey, look, I've had bad days. Trust me, I have said things that I wish had never come out of my mouth with one of my children, and not just one. I've probably made mistakes with all of them, especially when they were teenagers. But the biggest thing that I could hope for is like, oh man, I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I hadn't done that. Let me go immediately apologize. Let me say I'm sorry. Let me mean it. Let me humble myself to a child, to an adult, to a whomever. Oh, that one's on me. I'm really, really sorry. Please accept that I will never do that again. So I think that's the other side of this is when you're dealing with the bad customer, you will say, abusing your employee. Now, the TEDs, if it's angry email number 2, we are on a path, and I've got to figure. And if it gets to 3, you're right. Like I have little to no tolerance. Like you want to cuss at me, cool, do it. Don't you ever do that to one of my employees? Because man, you do that to one of my employees, I might come up to that level really fast.
That was what actually drove the angry at. Literally, it was an employee who I cared the world for came in crying, and it was a guy, but he was absolutely in tears because he was made to feel he was attacked personally associated with what was a mistake, but it wasn't a rise to the level of people are being sued and hurt and all those other things. It was just, I didn't hit my goals today type of mistake. And I said, I can't have my employees be the front line of any of this. And I said, I just need the people who are angry to email me. And one of
Mm-hmm.
my employees said, okay, angry at osi.net, and off we went. It wasn't, I didn't come up with it, but it made all the sense in the world. But it also just put everybody on notice, and I love that. So, okay, we have one more question, but before we do, we'll come right back to that, Mr. Anonymous, who's asking a lot of good questions today, by the way. Uh, so, um, Michael, we have an offer, right?
We do.
We got a cool thing
We
going on.
well, we have an offer that you have been very kind and generous to make this offer, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of it with you.
So if you're a Zomentum customer, this one doesn't apply to you as much as it does to Sonic Wall partners. But if you are paying for Zomentum today and you don't want to be paying for Zomentum today, I'm going to throw my email address up here in a minute. Send me an email and say, I'm tired of paying for Zomentum. Tell me how I don't have to do that anymore. And I'll tell you. If you are a Sonic Wall customer on here, I am going to click enter, and hopefully there is a link. And what does this link do? Michael, to let you announce it,
It
or
allows them to go out there and register so that they, as a Sonic Wall partner today, can get Zomentum for free.
exactly. So for the Sonic Wall partners that are out there, it's a limited time offer. Go out. It's fill 4 forms or four areas. Name, email, address, whatever, and we will get you Zomentum for free. More importantly, or just as importantly, it's Zomentum configured with Sonic Wall content. So all your marketing content and everything will be preloaded in Zomentum for you. So whenever you're trying to sell Sonic Wall and you need anything, it's right there, configured, ready to go. And if it's not in there and configured, Mike will figure out how to get it in there for you. So,
Yeah, I'll figure it out. I've got people.
yeah, exactly. So thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that. Okay, so what's the worst mistake you've ever made as a leader?
Man, not getting out of my employees' way so that they could actually do the job far better than I ever could. Um, as and I see this with a lot of MSPs and IT people, and in general, it happens. Like we get so proud of what we're capable of delivering and how we're capable of delivering it that sometimes we forget we don't have all of the answers. And I will say that in my journey of being that CEO and founder, and being a parent, being a U.S. Army combat veteran. Um, and it wasn't until I probably got into my 40s that I started to realize, like, and I don't know why I had to come back to this, because this is something the military is all about, is being a part of a team and allowing that team to be a better part of you. But I forgot some of those principles in my journey of being a CEO, and held on to things far too tightly and put a death grip on it. And it was my stuff. It was my ego, is really what it was. It was getting in the way of the success of the company. And I'll say that's probably one of the biggest failures that, I'm thankful that I'm now seeing that today, and I'm stepping back and I'm like, hey, if you want to tap me in, I'm standing on the outside of this rope and I'm ready to come in, and I'm ready to come off the top rope and do the Jimmy Superfly Snuka, if you will. Um, for all of you that are old enough to remember Jimmy Superfly Snuka. But that, I think, is one of my biggest failures as a leader, is to not let people do the things that they were the most amazing at, and trying to somehow fix them when they didn't need to be fixed.
I totally, completely agree with that as maybe the biggest mistake that any leader can make. Um, for me, it just came from a different place. I found out very early as a 20, I mean, I started this business when I was 24. So I was young, and the huge advantage of that was I was too stupid to not make mistakes. Like everything was a mistake. I just had to do something, and I wasn't afraid of anything. I didn't have kids to pay for. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't have any of those things. So, but what I found out very quickly was I got to be a hero, and that fed my ego. Like there were times where my employees needed help and I would jump in and take credit for everything. And that is absolutely the dumbest damn thing I could ever do. All I need to do as a leader is make sure that credit is being distributed to the people who are showing up every day and making a difference. And I've learned that lesson in spades. I mean, I take credit for almost nothing now, which is great, except for not taking, I mean, I take credit for not taking credit, but after that, it's pretty much like I'm just always so happy to wake up every morning and know that the people on the teams that I lead feel completely empowered to go win, and then completely motivated to come say, we won one today. This is what happened. And they know they don't have to sell themselves. They don't have to do any of that. We're going to celebrate that. We're going to celebrate that up one side and down the other. And in all fairness, I've I learned so much when I crossed over to the dark side and started working for vendors as opposed to working for myself as an MSP. One of the really big parts about that is working with some people who truly are great leaders and watching the things that they did to lead. And one of those things was just offering credit where it's due and taking none of it, even when you had a hand in it, because it doesn't do me any good. I get to genuinely enjoy the results. So much more than my employees. I guess the other thing is, if your employees don't feel like they're part of the owner and don't have an ownership stake in what you're doing, however you decide you want to do that, you should give them the opportunity to have a stake in your business. They will be more motivated, they will be more driven, they will add more value, they will take it personally at some level, and they will work harder for you. And that's always, I don't necessarily need them to be working harder for me. I just need them to care about what we're doing and understand the value of it. And when you're communicating that, offering credit to everybody and making them part of the win, you end up with a happier company. So that would be
Yeah, I
my
think
take.
I think you know what, Ted, it's them working harder for themselves, which in turn then that means that they're working harder for you.
Absolutely. That's a better way, far better way to say it. So I put in the chat a link that you guys can click. It's in there just in case anybody missed it. Also, my email, ted@zomentum.com and mcreen@sonicwall.com are in here. Those come to us. They're not monitored emails. So if you guys have any further questions, want to continue the conversation, anything along those lines, or just want to figure out how to do something with it within either company, don't hesitate to reach out. I will tell everyone, and it's 11:45. We try to make this happen in 45 minutes. I'll tell everyone here, if you want to share this opportunity with somebody else on that who's a Sonic Wall reseller, somebody in your team or whatever, don't hesitate to share. We will be getting a recording of this out, I think tomorrow or maybe the next day to the Sonic Wall. To everybody who attended, feel free to share it and make it available, because we want to give everybody the opportunity to start selling harder and more effectively and have access to all the Sonic Wall materials, so it's an easy thing to do. So with that, thank you guys all very, very much. And Lisa just said, yes, we can get this out via email as well as on YouTube. So that's awesome. And Michelle, thank you for the thanks. And Michael, any last words?
No, I don't think so. I think, look, this is a journey that we're all on together, and we're a community that we can decide to be really great and helpful to one another, or really destructive and awful for one another. And, I choose to be a part of things like this with you, Ted, because I know that we're building a stronger community together to support one another. So I appreciate this opportunity. And, I hope that everybody on here has come across and come away with just one thing, and
Amen.
somehow it makes your life better today and tomorrow. And, take it and go give it to someone else.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I just want to wrap up by saying over the last 10 years, I don't have any right to take any pride in the MSP channel, but I get great satisfaction out of the fact that I keep seeing MSPs doing more and more amazing things and being more and more successful and becoming mentors and helping other people get jobs and driving. We were an essential industry in the recent COVID situation. That wouldn't have happened 20 years ago, but 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 years ago, as the case may be, that happened. The industry has become better, and that's every one of us owns a little bit of that growth and that excitement, and it's just really nice to be a part of a channel where everybody is on some level working together to make everybody else a little better every day. And I think that's really what this webinar has been about. So thank you all very much for attending. We'll get follow-up information out to all of you, and really enjoyed it. Michael, thank you so much for joining me for this today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.